Welcome, everyone. We got Richard here today, and he's going to share a little bit more on his transformation with the kinetic method. So, welcome, Richard.
Hi, Mara. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on. So, before we dive in, can you tell a little bit more around, age, height, weight, maybe your schedule, what you do, that people get a full understanding, and then we go right into the fitness and health stuff.
Sure. Well, I met you. I was just turning 50. I'm turning 52 this week in just a few days. And I'm 6'4". And as of this morning, I weighed in at 168.5. When I met you, I think I was around 210, 11, 12, kind of right around that. And my lowest weight has been 159.2 or something like that. So that's a little bit over 50 pounds at the low I had lost by working with you, and now I'm kind of in a bulk phase where I'm putting on some muscle instead of losing the fat, basically.
Good. Yeah, you've got a very, very impressive transformation, especially your back without wanting to do injustice to your abs, but we can talk more about that. First, let's like rewind, maybe 2+ years ago, before you signed up, before you started the Kinetic Method. Like, what would you say were some of the things or programs that you tried before, whether it's trainer, fasting, maybe doing it all on your own?
I think one of the biggest myths is that in-person training is better than, say, online training, or even one-to-one training is better than group training. And I had a couple in-person training people. I lived in Southern California, and I used to go to a gym. I think I used to go 3 times a week, but I would pay a trainer twice. And I want to say I was paying a trainer $100 a session, so it was like $600+ a month. And I was with that trainer for probably a year. But he didn't give me any blood work. He didn't give me any diet stuff. I didn't have any library of trainings. And so it's kind of like I'd go in and he'd help me. And quite frankly, I don't really need much help in the gym. If I know what my routine is, I can go in there and get it done. It was good to keep me accountable. And at the time, I probably needed that. And then when I came, my family moved to Maine. And again, I thought, oh, I have to get an in-person trainer. And so I joined a small gym, and it's a little bit cheaper here. I want to say it was like $60 or $70 a session. I think it was like 65, and he would train me twice a week. But again, I would go in and kind of do the routine with the guy, but he didn't look at what I was eating. There was no tracking of my weight. So I kind of had to create my own goals as I went along. And there might be other in-person trainers that have other pieces, but I kind of failed on both of those things. I also did 75 hard. I think it was a good program for me initially because it helped me get consistent and complete my task every day. I do think I like that program for the mental aspect. But again, they don't track they just say follow a diet, which is really quite general, and it's not meant to do that. It's not his role. And it's like do 2 45-minute workouts, and they don't tell you what to do. And so, when I found you, first of all, I knew that you did the blood work, and that's really I wanted to put hard science behind, um, my body. I wanted to have accountability on a daily basis, and so with your system, I've got a coach. They're watching my workouts and they're watching my food. I wanted to get accountable for what I ate and be told like what my ideal macros were. So you all helped me with that. And so really the big piece I was missing was the eating piece. And then by looking at my blood work, we were able to identify what in my system was, not optimal. And so we could supplement both with food and with some nutrients as well.
Yeah, I think you kind of took away the next question that I had for you, which is like what was different, but you illustrated it so great. I've personally hired trainers before in person for myself. And, some people think like, oh, at some point you don't need a coach, or if I know it, I don't need a coach. But like if we think about it, Jordan had a coach for a very, very long time, and he definitely knew how to play basketball. So yeah, I've found like if you have an in-person trainer, then it's very helpful to correct details. Like for me, when I was close to failure, like 1, 2, 3 reps shy away, then my form was not always perfect. And sometimes uh, I would just make certain movements that would hurt my lower back or my wrist. And it's like, hey, when you're fatigued, we notice, or I notice you do like this. It's like, right. So you have to put those blind spots and also like pushing yourself, like, come on, like one more. I found that's really helpful. But eventually, after like 5, 10 sessions max, you got that locked in, but you're still missing other elements and the holistic picture there. So I would actually argue that for someone that's very advanced and has everything locked in, an in-person trainer may make sense to squeeze out a little bit more juice from the intensity and just some little form corrections, which you can still do online. But like someone who doesn't have all the pieces together, scaling that one piece usually doesn't get the greatest ROI from my experience. Because again, you be busting your ass at the gym, but if your diet is not optimized, then your results will never match the effort that you put in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And even with working with you guys, I can send Raul or one of your guys a video and they can correct my form and they can just look at my stats and go, you're not going to failure because you're doing the same number of reps 3 times in a row. And so they can literally like look kind of like a trading chart and see whether you're hitting it or not, as they can with the macros. No, but I agree. I think there's probably, especially also on the beginning side, if you're just beginning in gym, I think it really helps to have somebody show you around on the machines and things like that. But I think what hit me was the holistic value of your system, and that it's putting all the pieces together that really make the difference. And I mean, you kind of intimated this, but this idea that, okay, I worked out today, I can eat more food. It's kind of like there's all these like little things you realize you can't outrun your diet. And believe me, I've tried to do that numerous times through this. And or or you go so much extra in the gym that your appetite goes up and then you binge eat at night. And so there's all these little like mini traps that I don't attend every call you have, but I attend a lot of the case studies because I'm watching people in your system make transformation. I want to know how they did it. And then your team's really good because you'll be like, oh, you need to watch the video on night binging eating or on this training. And so you have pretty much a training for everything. uh, and they're like really down to earth. I call them like Southern style. They're just easy to digest. And you're never making the person feel bad. It's just, hey, just here's another way to approach it if you want to put this into your system. So
Yeah, and that's the goal, that it becomes a lifelong asset and not just a one-off thing there. And that's why we put all these pieces together, as you touched on just before. Actually, I'm curious, how did you find me? Like, was it just you saw my stuff and you reached out, or you heard about the work I did with someone else?
it's kind of an interesting question. I think you've been, and I mean, you're in some of the same communities I am on Facebook. And I think it's kind of an interesting story um because I think we became friends a couple years before we started working out. And I teach people marketing and online programs and different things, but and normally in the personal development field, things like meditation and tai chi and therapy, things like that. And I tell my clients, the number one way to get more clients and to build your business is just to get people friggin' results. And then post the results of your clients, but not in like a weird scammy way, like, look how good my system is, but post it and say, hey, look at John here, look at Sally, or look at Richard. and look, and they've done the work, see what they've followed the system, and they've created this change, and they've done the work to get the transformation they want. And so basically you're celebrating the client success and celebrating all the I was going to write an email about this week, actually, the unseen work. Like I was up at 5 a.m. this morning and I did 2 loops around my thing, which is around 8 miles. And I walked most of it. But before most people were up at 7, I had done, 14,000 steps in 8 miles, so that's the unseen work. So you just see me talking to you here and you go, oh, he lost some weight, but they don't see the 500 sessions in the gym that I put in over the couple years, and the time I'm out early morning when everybody's sleeping, putting that hour in before I get on front of a computer where I might spend 8 hours my whole day. And so the unseen work. But kind of flipping back around to the question you asked, because I wandered a bit there. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. So you started to post results, and normally like the first result somebody posts, I'm like, okay, that's his brother. And then the second result, I'm like, okay, that guy was taking steroids. And the third person is like, okay, that's just his genetics. But like after like the 6th or 7th result, you're like, your
Out
brain
of
just,
excuses. Yeah.
yeah, your brain just freezes and it's like, man, this guy must be good. He's creating results. And so quite honestly, I was on your list for a couple of years, and there's another big transformation in your group, a guy named Ryan. And I saw his transformation, and I had seen some of the others, and I was like, man, that's like shocking. And the thing was, my body looked like Ryan's before the transformation. I was like, oh, my body looks kind of like that. Maybe a little bit better in some ways and maybe a little bit worse in some ways, And I thought, well, if that dude can do it, and at that point I had a couple in-person trainers that hadn't worked out, and I'd done 75 hard, and I still had the body of Ryan before the transformation, And I'm like, well, obviously that shit, it hasn't stuck. And so I need something. And this is an important point. I wanted something that changed me, not as a goal, or you helped me build into the process, but I wanted to change my identity so that if I got fit, I would never go back, and this would be my new identity for the rest of my life. I'm 52 now. And, you never really can be sure whether you're going to revert, but I feel pretty stable now in this new version of myself that's a lot lighter, a lot fitter. My biological age is 37, according to DEXA Fit. My cardio age, according to my Aura Ring, is 10 years less. So I've got some good markers going, Yeah, so I reached out on chat, and it was kind of interesting because I reached out almost 2 years after we became friends. And I just gave you a chat, and I said, hey, I'm considering, I'm considering your program finally. And I think your response was like, what made you reach out, or something like that, and I had reached out like a year before, and there wasn't a connection. And I said, well, to be honest, I said, I'm turning 50. And I see these transformations, and I recently had COVID. I just gotten over Lyme's. I was like, I think I'm ready. Can you give me information? And in my head, I had like a number. Like if he's below this number, I'm kind of like a trader mentality from extra days. I've like, if it's below that number, it's just bam, sold. I'm not even gonna like, I'm just get me in, And so your number was probably way above what most people would think about spending on their fitness, but I wanted to, for me, there's no price you can put on that, for the vitality, health, as a role model for clients, all kinds of things. And so you were like almost half of what I was willing to pay. So I was willing to pay a lot, actually. So I just hit it. And
I think I need to send out the new invoice after this call.
well, yeah, whatever. So like, so then you just got me on board. And I think it was kind of interesting because you're like, well, I can't onboard you now because I'm so busy. I've got so many people coming in. You're gonna have to be next month or 60 days. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Well, can you get me in a membership site so I can kind of get going? So it took about a month to get me on board. And at the time I was moving overseas to Spain, so it kind of worked out for me because I was kind of in the middle of, so it helped me out. So
Speaking of your move to Spain, would you say the program was still sustainable as you were traveling in a new environment? Because I know you travel quite a lot between the US and Europe, and a lot of men, especially men in business who are on the go, ask themselves, hey, will this work when I'm traveling, or do I have to be like meal prepping, locked in a routine every single day?
yeah, that's a good question. You know, we've talked about this a little bit, and I've presented the group before too. But I would just say that you have to look at the areas of fitness that you're going to make excuses in. And so, like, one big area is travel, another big area is I've got clients, I have to entertain clients, or I have to go out and socialize. So those are two really big areas that people will make excuses. They'll say, "Look, it's not possible," or "I don't want to do it." And then what that just really means is you're not committed to your goal, and you're not willing to find a solution. And so I think you can reframe both areas. For me, for travel, initially it was really hard because you know, like I would walk through an airport and I really didn't know what I was eating at the time, and I didn't know the calorie intake. And so I call them hostile zones now, just because I think I like that, because if you're just walking through an airport, the airport stores, not the airport itself. Hopefully, it's not a hostile zone, right? But if you walk into an airport store, and there's two really hostile. Well, I'd say there's three places that I would call hostile zones, but the two on the top of the list are airports and gas stations are some of the most hostile places, because you think you're just walking through to get your plane, but those places are designed to get you to spend your money, and spend your money on like alcohol or duty free or makeup or sunglasses, like things that you normally wouldn't purchase. You'll spend a couple $100s because you're in this weird state going through the airport. Or if you go into the convenience store, generally, you've been in line for a couple hours, you probably haven't been hydrated well. And so you walk into those places and like your favorite foods are there, your packages of gummy bears, watermelon flavor, or the sour ones, like everything that you like from your childhood. And so that's one aspect of travel, is just getting through the airport. When you land in the hotel, so I would walk through an airport, get a couple of Dunkin' Donuts, get a couple coffees, swing by, get some gummy. This is just the old self, right? And so I'd probably consume like 700-800 calories before I got on a plane. And then they feed you a plane meal, which is another 600 or 700 calories. So you're at like the daily
Garbage.
intake. In like 2 hours, you're at the daily intake, and then you land on the other side at the hotel, and maybe you go out with a client, or you go out to dinner, hit fast food on the way in, you're driving somewhere. And so you can just see it's a setup to like gain weight while you're traveling. And so I started to gamify my travel. This answer is probably a little bit longer than you wanted, but I started to gamify it and start to think, can I just take coffee going through the airport? So coffee for me is kind of like my go-to, or sparkling water, because those both I love both of those. And then like get to the airport and not be hungry. And then sometimes I'll take the food on the plane, but more often than not, I just say I don't want the food. But if I have this, if I go, oh, I'll just eat the steak on the plate, and they drop the plate there, I'll eat whatever they put down on me, because like I'm not able to. So like you just have to kind of turn, and that's hard. It's almost like the stewardess is like, really, you don't want this, and even the little packs of peanuts and things like that. These are super funny, because those are like 200 calories, like the little pack of peanuts. Peanuts have a lot of calories, and then they have sugar on top of them, so it spikes your blood levels.
And a
Again,
lot of people will get inflamed from them. So
yeah, and
horrible.
they're not even good for you, right? Yeah, they're not even good for you. It's not even like the best source of protein. Um, yeah, and then the hotel, I started to gamify and go, what if I could maintain or get in better shape? And what if I could make this an adventure where I joined a gym, or I basically plan in my walks or my workouts. If it was a short trip, normally what I do is I try to get my workouts before I travel. because my gym at home, I have it all, I know all the machines. It's a lot harder to alternate if I'm in like a foreign gym. But if I'm away, like I was just in New Hampshire for a week and I joined this gym called Mountain Fitness for a week. It was $40 for the week, super cheap. And they pretty much had everything, but the clientele in there was like super funny because it was like teenagers in pajamas and like it was just it's super funny, but like it was good because I was working during the day and I could go there and I had this, it's kind of the Hawaiians have a term called place of refuge. It's a place you go to take care of yourself. It's a to recuperate and to heal. And so if you start to look at a gym as a place to take care of your body, um, and then the last thing for travel is, you know, if my normal day is a light breakfast ish, and then a lunch, and then a dinner, and if I know I'm going out that night for dinner, um, then I can do a couple things. One is I can save my calories, so I can eat a lot less. Don't hit the buffets in the morning. I love buffets and brunches and things like that, or eat a light dinner and then go for the buffet. So it's rather than spending your calories on stuff like a bag of gummy bears that gives you nothing and just spikes your blood sugar, you invest it and go, okay, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee and I don't know, protein shake in the morning and just have a light lunch. And then I know I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna have a big steak for dinner. And then you can meet a client. You can even have a glass of wine if you want. I have discovered non-alcoholic beer. There's a brand here called Athletic Brewing. 50 calories in a nice cold glass, non-alcoholic. I love the stuff. It tastes just like regular stuff. It's beautiful with the steak, almost 0 calorie impact, and I feel like I'm nurturing myself. So there's all these things. So yeah, so I can budget my calories, and then you start to have the gym set up, do the workout in advance, be free through the airport. Um, you start to stack those strategies on, and I don't necessarily say it's easy, but it's doable. But all of a sudden you're giving back to yourself, and because you're giving back to yourself and you're staying on track, you feel good about yourself. It builds your image. And then even if you just maintain where your current weight, that's a huge win on a travel. But quite frankly, like even last week I was in New Hampshire for a week in a foreign gym, probably not in the healthiest county. New Hampshire tends to be pretty Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald-ish in a lot of areas, at least the area I was in. But I was in the small, and I set PRs 3 days in that gym. So that was great. So 3 days in a row, I was setting weight PRs on like lifting and stuff like that. And so my weight didn't change much. That's okay. And so I just maintained, but I was setting PRs on a week where I could have made excuses. I could have said, "Oh, it's travel," or I have to go out with clients, and I budgeted there was a nice steak restaurant there. I budgeted my calories. I had a massive ribeye with mashed potatoes. It was a lot of calories, but I had budgeted. So I ate well. I had my non-alcoholic beer, 50 calories. And so I didn't give up anything. So sometimes there's this thing where I got to give up the stuff, or I can't do that. This is my reward. But you can have it all, but you got to make better decisions.
Yeah, you got a plan for it. And
Yeah.
I love that you say that and you highlight it and demonstrate it. Because if I say it, it's like, ah, yeah, you've been always into fitness, blah, blah, blah. But the way you explained it with the science, with the systems and structure, it just shows that you not only applied it, but you also understand the concept of it to the point where you can literally coach someone through this framework, which is just amazing. So I
Yeah,
gotta,
and there's all these like hidden benefits too, because you're putting yourselves in environments where you're gonna meet the right people, and then I go into that day feeling better too, and your self-image is better. And then a lot of people are like, "Oh, 10,000 steps is so much," and I'm just like, yeah, I used to think that too. um but I think it's because we think it's not productive. It's like, well, I should be writing copy, or calling a client, or whatever your thing is. But that hour in the morning that I say walk, an hour walking is probably say, let's just say 6,500 steps. If you walk faster, maybe 7,000, maybe a little bit more. So I can get 7,000 steps in, but I can listen to an audio. So I can listen to Kobe Bryant or Oprah or whoever my person is. And I can be programming my mind for success. I can be listening to a podcast. Um, I can put on Otter AI and I can talk into it and I can dictate my book or I can learn a language. And so that's not non-productive hours. In fact, that's like the 1 hour I'm actually giving to myself. And I call it kind of a double tap where I can get a couple things done at one time, something for my fitness. And I can also move. There are days where I don't do anything. I just listen to music or just have silence. Sometimes that's the best thing in nature. And that's sometimes what my soul needs. And there's other times, you know, you're programming your mind like Kobe's. I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan. If you listen to his old stuff, you know, he's never done. It's not like he lets go. You know, he was always working to make himself better, to be the best in the world, you know. And listening to guys like him or whoever your person is, you know, I'm a David Goggins. I like listening to him just because he's just so out there, you know. It's like, okay, you know, yeah.
So I got one last question for you. Early on, you talked about, you teaching marketing to people and some elements to that. I know it's not like the only business you run, but if you look across the board business-wise, would you say your health had an impact there financially?
Yeah, it's a really deep question. I know that the level of fitness I'm in is gonna, because I'm getting on camera a lot more, and so I just feel better about myself and I look better. I had to buy like this is a new shirt here, and you know I've gone down 6 sizes in my pants, so I kind of have a whole new wardrobe. Yeah, but my self-image is increased. So there's like a external side that people see me a little bit differently, and then I've shared a little bit of my journey to my inner community, so they're like, they know I have that piece down. So you can have a business piece down but be shitty in your relationship and be out of health and not be connected to spirit, you know. And so I kind of think you need all the areas, and as you achieve in one area, it's going to affect all the other areas. If you improve your relationship, say with your key partner, that's going to improve your business life too. I think the number one area that can improve your business is actually, besides your primary relationship maybe with your partner, is I think is your fitness. Not that any one area should be left out, but as you get your fitness in, I think that there's a vitality that you bring to it. And then there's a whole other aspect, which is an internal aspect of, as you go through your training tomorrow and the Kinetic method and head toward being the six-pack CEO, which is a really amazing vision that everybody can hold for themselves. um, you know, you learn things that can be applied to business. So for example, give to yourself first, to put your health first. So what's the most important thing in your business? Maybe it's lead gen or making the call. So doing the important things first in your business first. In fitness, there's what's your key tracking metric on a daily basis. You know, it's like you have to track your food. You gotta um, you know, track your workouts and weigh yourself and get your steps. So there's 4 primary tracking metrics. So if you're a business person or running any kind of company and you don't know your primary metrics and you're not tracking them on a daily basis, so, you know, as you start to go through this cycle with fitness, you can bring that tracking into other areas. Or how much time are you spending with your wife? Or, you know, it starts to bleed, so that the consistency that you build up as you go toward optimal health, whatever that means for you. For me, that meant 10% body fat, which I reached a couple of weeks ago. And that's just phase 1. Now I'm on phase 2. Then you can start to blend those things over. And as you get more consistent in one area, it tends to come into the other areas. You can bring the internal skills, which is a meta skill, right? It's not like about that particular tracking metric, but every area has a tracking metric that's important, you know. So you got to kind of identify that. And the truth is, the most successful businesses have that, and the least successful don't know where they're going. They don't have markers, they don't have accountability, they're not tracking on a daily basis, and they're just hoping, or they're chasing some hack or some technique. And then when it gets a little hard, then they go watch Netflix, or they shift off the screen and go to social media. And so I've been guilty of all of those things before, so there's no judgment. But you can use this as a crucible to become a better business person, a better husband, wife, or to be more connected with God, even, if that's your thing. So that's one of my things. So
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for the very in-depth, detailed, and tactical answers that you gave. I think the guys will find a lot of value in this, especially the travel part, and also all the other piece of feedback that you gave. So thank you very much for coming along and joining here. And it's been a pleasure to see your success unfold.
yeah, well, thanks to you, Mauro, and the team, Fortino and Raul, and I think you have the best community and the best system out there. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't really believe it, and believe in you. And also, the nice thing is you're taking responsibility, but you also want to attract people who are ready to do the work and take their own responsibility, because that's what it's all about. You got to just say, like, enough's enough. My fitness has to come first. So thanks for letting me share. I'm happy to pass it on to the next person. Hopefully I give some inspiration, so that if you're listening to this, make the decision to take it into your hands, and either join Mauro's group. And I always say, well, if he's not your dude, go find somebody to work with and make the transformation, with somebody who really has a powerful system in place and has the results that can show it, because that's really the proof of the pudding, or whatever they say, right? So thank you.
Thank you.